growing your newsletter, the main things that I found the most successful are cross promotions. So free exchange of you promote my newsletter, I'll promote yours. A lead magnet that is highly relevant to your newsletter, so that when people download it and then get on your email list to your newsletter, they're not going to be there's not going to be that dissonance. Like they downloaded this thing that's totally different than what you're talking about in your newsletter.
Hello team, it's Fab here, founder of Alt Marketing School, and I am back with yet another amazing interview for this week's podcast. And this week I'm going to introduce you to my new friend, Dylan. Yay! Yes, indeed. Dylan is the amazing founder of Growth Currency. And if you don't know it, is actually an amazing newsletter that has been publishing for a couple of years. So you can kind of guess I'm going to get pretty excited, because if you know me well enough, you will know that I love a good newsletter. And before we jump into my new chat with my new best friend, let me tell you a bit more about Dylan. He lives on the west coast of Canada with his wife and kids, where he works as a marketer by day and a newsletter publisher by night. He's been writing and publishing the Growth Currency newsletter since January 2021 and has published over 100 editions of this weekly newsletter. His newsletter earned him over $10,000 in 2022 through ads and sponsorships and even affiliate revenue. When he's not working or publishing, Dylan enjoys spending time with his family, running and woodworking. And yes, we also talk about some of his other passions that you will discover in today's episode. I really hope you're going to enjoy this. I had a blast and it was so much fun to connect with Dylan. And as always, enjoy today's class and shout out to our new little merch or non-merch. And yeah, before I forget, may today's class begin. Dylan and I are already friends. I was going to say this before. Oh, okay, excellent. Yay. I was going to say, even because you already complimented my singing voice. So thank you. You lied for me already, and I appreciate that.
You're the first person I've done a podcast with where the first noise or sound I hear on the other end is singing. So it was a great start. It set the tone. I loved it.
I cannot promise I will do it for everybody else. But I think this was a special thing. And also Toto came out of nowhere for some reason. So I was surprising myself of why that came into my head. So again, it was a very special thing. And I appreciate you lying for me about my performance. So I hope we set the tone. You see, they support each other all the way through the end, at the beginning and at the end.
That's right.
Well, since we're already friends, I would even throw away my ice-breaking questions today. But then I'm curious. So as good friends do, they still ask the questions. I'm actually going to jump straight into it, even more so because I'm eager to know. Dylan, I want to know about the past. I want to know about jobs. Oh, yes. I want to know about your first job. Can you remember your first job? What was it and what did you learn from it?
We're going way back. I think first official job that I got paid for was probably working for my dad. He was in construction. So he'd in spring break at school or summers, I'd go out to the job sites, clean up garbage and scrap pieces of wood and do all the stuff that nobody else wanted to do. And I hated it miserably. I didn't do it for money. I did it because my dad told me I had to do it. So I would rather not earn money and stayed at home and just, played and hung out with friends.
So did you learn anything from it? Or you think maybe we have another job that you maybe, again, you felt more like you wanted to get into it and it taught you more? I mean, we can learn from any jobs. That's what I'm going to say. But yeah, I was wondering whether there was something you learned from it aside the fact that you didn't like it.
Yeah, well, that was the most important lesson is I knew that I did not want to do that kind of work. And so it helped me decide in the future going forward, a couple of decades almost, or a decade and a half at least, what I did want to do and that there were jobs that we could do that we can enjoy a little bit. We don't have to just be slaves to, a paycheck. So it was an important learning in that for sure.
Would you say that because of what you do and who you are today, which we're talking about, first of all, also because emails is one of my favorite topics as well. So yay.
Awesome.
Also because obviously, we're already friends. Everybody knows that the listener is already tuned in. So it's fine. But also I love the fact that it's very specific, again, what you do, which I appreciate when it comes to that expertise element. And so my question is talking about, obviously, kind of deciding what you want to do and kind of defining your own job and your own path. How do you find the path of figuring out that email is really the area, the tool, the side of marketing that you really wanted to kind of zero in? How did that come about then?
Kind of happened somewhat, I'd say, serendipitously, almost accidentally, because I had done email marketing in a few previous marketing roles. But I wasn't like, that wasn't my dedicated job. That was just, as most maybe marketing professionals know, as a generalist, you're like, you do a little bit of social media, a little bit of email marketing, a little bit of copy, website maintenance, you do kind of a little bit of everything, right? And at least in the roles I had, I did. So I did a little bit of, MailChimp I worked with, and ActiveCampaign, and, platforms like that. But then in 2021, I decided just over 2 years ago, at the very beginning of 2021, I had decided that creating my own personal newsletter was something I wanted to do. And I knew the importance. I didn't have anything to sell anyone, but I knew that maybe in the future I might. And building an email list, making a business with an email list is going to be one of the most dependable ways, at least, to grow an audience and build kind of a future customer base, or, the 1,000 true fans type of thing. I was kind of growing on Twitter, and I decided that is a very questionable strategy. You're using somebody else's software and platform, and that leaves you susceptible to things changing and you not having access to that audience. So the email list seemed like the safer way to go. And so I started publishing a newsletter, and then I learned over the last 2 years a lot about different email service providers like Substack and ConvertKit and all these other ones that are around. And then also what it takes to publish a weekly newsletter for over 100, straight weeks. So that's kind of the beginning of how I got into it. And fast forward to where I am now, but there's a lot that happened in the middle there.
First of all, I love that you mentioned the word dependable as a tool, and reliable, because I think that has been my pet peeve. Again, if I may go a bit down memory lane myself, I did mention that I just love emails, and I love them pretty much since maybe we started our first email newsletter in 2016, when I like my old company, when I was kind of starting my own company. But I also had it for my personal stuff all the time, and I've tried them all multiple times. Then you go to Substack, and then you go back to this, and then you go back to that. And I always found that was the hardest sell when it came to teaching clients, now students a lot less because of obvious reasons, because the landscape has changed. But it was the hardest thing. Everybody was like, just tell me how to grow on Instagram. Tell me how to, obviously, all the business stuff, fair enough. And then tell me how to grow on social. Maybe tell me how to kind of great consistency in my blog. But email, I don't really want to hear about, because I don't know. I think there's a lot of fear. Maybe we're going to talk about a bit today, but there was fear of what would you tell people? Would people want you in their inbox? And just overall, it felt like it was maybe not a channel that, people would actually want to invest on. And then you think about it again, retrospectively, I've been teaching hundreds of email marketing workshops now. And I always say to people, this is a place that everybody goes back to. And when you have your little spot in somebody's inbox, if you treat it well, if you treat it with respect, that is a huge asset. So I love that you mentioned the word dependable, because that's how it's always felt for me. And nobody was listening. Nobody believed me. And now Dylan's here to tell us that it is true. So
fools. Yes, no, absolutely true. You're onto something 100%.
Now, before we get back into emails, maybe the answer will be emails and newsletters, but another icebreaker question I have is, what would be a trivia category, Dylan, you'd be really good at, and why?
Wow, that's a good question. So I would say maybe anything related to either hockey or football. So American football and, NHL, because I grew up loving sports, watching a lot of sports, collecting sports cards. So that in that realm, especially like 80s and 90s sports trivia, that would be probably not a bad place to go.
So you're literally, I love it. You literally are kind of taking the full sports trivia pursuit kind of vibe there, which I appreciate as well. I want to ask you then, I'm going to kind of side away into my final icebreaker question, which is, since we're all about encouraging making a positive impact and obviously marketing to hearts, not to brains, I want to hear from you based on a bit of the backstory that you gave us and where you are right now. What does making a positive impact on your audience, Dylan, mean to you, and why?
I think making a positive impact on your audience is being more, basically your ratio to being helpful and, providing value, as that's a bit of a cliche term these days, but being helpful and not asking needs to be a much higher than the other way around. So for every maybe sale or ask that you have from your customer, your email base, you should be, offering support, value, information, education, tenfold. So I think that to me, I'm not saying that you can't, promote a course or a product or a service ever, but I think that it really comes down to not taking advantage of people's trust. And, they subscribe to your newsletter and then all you're doing is just trying to sell them on this, that, and the other thing, or every other affiliate product opportunity that comes your way. That to me is what it means more so, and being kind of as authentic and genuine and sincere as you can be in your communication.
It's really powerful that you reframed like that kind of the ask piece, because realistically speaking, especially when it comes to a medium like email, that I always say is a personalized communication at scale. We tend to forget that. We're literally getting into everybody's inbox. And if we use personalization, you even say, hi, Fab, hi, Dylan, or hi, legend. Yeah, so there is that connection that kind of goes into that, you are literally talking to me. And as you say, is almost that reminder that, I'm going to say it now, and I want to hear your opinion, we can't be lazy no more. Because as I said, it used to be an industry, used to be a tool that people were just thinking, I'm going to use it to share what I'm up to. Fine. And or share what we're offering. Fine. And that kind of almost cut it, because the expectations, in my opinion, and the level of sophistication when it came to the email and the amount of value you would get was good or average. Again, I'm talking about 2018, so probably we're going a bit back there. And now the level is so much higher. The quality is so much higher. People are really putting so much value into their emails. And that's the other thing. Instead of thinking about it as a negative, use it as a positive to inspire you to create better content. But that's what I've personally found. Again, being almost like an old lady in the email marketing industry. That's what I've found, that the quality has changed tenfold. And email is almost still a bit of a baby when it comes to the way that it can evolve to become better and better as email marketing, because more and more tools are coming out with better integrations and better tools to allow to make it better. So am I just being an old woman looking at how things were in the past, or am I onto something?
No, I think you're totally onto something. And while you're talking, I just got a bit of almost a comparable sort of metaphor. So if you think about, actual physical mail that we receive in our mailboxes, right? You can get various kinds of mail, right? You can get letters from friends and postcards. You can get, the junk mail, or the catalog that has sales and promotion offers. And you can get actual magazines that you subscribe to, and that sort of thing. So you can kind of think about email has all of those different forms as well, right? And what are you more excited to receive in your mailbox when you go and open your mailbox? A bill? No, obviously not. Postcard from a friend is great. But if you subscribe to one of, your favorite magazines, not that a lot of people are subscribed to physical magazines these days, but, back in the day, you get, the new issue of Sports Illustrated or something along those lines, and you're excited to pour through it and really, really invest your afternoon into reading it. And so I think, you can consider what you're sending people to their inbox in a similar way. Are people actually going to be excited to open up their inbox and take out this piece of mail and consume it? Or are they just going to be not another one of these buy one, get one 50% off deals? You know what I mean? So I think if you can kind of almost put it into those terms, it helps you think about email marketing and email newsletters as well in two different ways, because the newsletter is going to be more like that Sports Illustrated issue, whereas email marketing is going to be here's your promotional, our seasonal catalog promotional offer kind of thing. So I don't know if that kind of plays into what you're saying there, but that it just really jumped into my head when you were talking about that.
I'm obsessed with the analogy just because I long of somebody sending me a cheeky letter or a little card as well. And right. I think that's the other thing, is some of the best emails I've received are the ones, shout out to Jay Klaus, who also we had on the podcast. Obviously, I will shout out to Jay. And he sends one of the best kind of welcome, not even sequence, because actually it's just an email, at least at the time that I received it, but the simplest welcome email that actually you can see that is very taught for his audience. And this is why I love what you mentioned, and it kind of reflects back on the fact that things have changed. First of all, I had to battle to remind people that it's important to think about the experience post subscription. A lot of people were rolling their eyes, and now I think again people are a bit more aware, but we still find that a lot of the welcome sequences or the welcome emails, it's still what you would expect, but also it still kind of feels a bit like just an afterthought. Whereas his example was the one of almost a little postcard or a little note sent from somebody to you specifically. And it was nice because it was refreshing. Maybe I literally consume too many emails and I look at it always. I don't know if you do the same. You look at it with a very analytical head instead of just enjoying it. But I was just thinking, this was actually nice. This was different. I enjoyed that. I don't know if you do that as well. When you look at an email and you're like, I really want to read this, but also I love what they did there. Or I don't like that. Or maybe I should try that. Is it just me?
No, it's not just you. Absolutely not. No, I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to that as well. Like I'll save welcome emails that I get from people especially if they're good, or sometimes if they're like, here's what not to do, right? And you, at least in your opinion, if you felt rubbed the wrong way or that they were doing something that maybe they shouldn't have. I think there's a great opportunity to use your interests, right, like that, to make case studies and great examples and swipe files of what you can do and what you can share with others too. So I can relate.
That's a good shout. Again, I call them a lot of different ways depending on the day, but swipe files is also what we know a lot of them as. And I think every good marketer, regardless of their specialization, if you have one, like you should definitely kind of think about creating their own version of swipe files, whatever it is. Like we talk a lot about kind of Notion dashboards that we create them with our students as well, but it can be anything. I think just like a place for you to get back to. And I think the hardest thing, and I promise we're going to go into the main section, but I'm just enjoying this rolling through. But the main thing that I struggle with, and a lot of people struggle with, is actually then reviewing them. You know, like you save all of this amazing content, like these welcome, all these emails that you love and you don't love. And then actually finding the time to do something with it, I think is always the biggest issue. So do you have this problem, and or what would you say is a good way to actually obviate? I mean, for me, it's a work in progress, I'll be honest, because I still am consuming far more than I actually implement. But I know it's a big issue for a lot of people.
If you can introduce me to somebody who doesn't have this problem, I want to interview them and know their secrets as well. And they could probably start a cohort-based course selling $1,000 just on that. Like, I've got a folder in my bookmarks called Tab Hoard. And so it's like when I have tabs open that I'm like, no, I can't close it. I'll lose this precious information that's going to change my life. I just shove it in that folder. So it's just the anxiety release of like, okay, well, I saved it. If I want to go back to it, then fine. But that's a different thing kind of than what you're talking about. But I just saw it here on my screen and it reminded me. But yeah, I mean, I've got a database because with my newsletter, I curate about 4 or so links per week. And so I've got an Airtable database of, I don't have it open right now, but I think it's got over 300 links in it, many of which I've published, but a lot of them are just like, save this for later because it could be useful. And so I don't have a necessarily clear strategy of how to use it, except that I know I need to at least do a skim or a quick breeze over each of these articles or these resources so that I can share them and actually speak to what they're talking about in my newsletter. So there's a bit of a forcing function to actually read them, I suppose. But there's a lot that I save that I just never even, I like the headline and I'm like, hey, I should read that. And then it just goes into the forever waste bin of things that I should read someday.
The someday pile.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
The read later. Read never.
The read lit pile. The read never pile. If it were honest, the read never pile. You know exactly. What? It's super interesting because we actually have one live session in our certification, in our live cohort that is all about marketing systems. And I talk a lot about using the second brain, using mainly Tiago Forte's frameworks as well. So obviously they're all from him, which are amazing. And you can read about it in his book as well if you're interested. And I generally find that when it comes to understanding how to actually kind of get a better system it's just remembering the power of taking that time to look at your swipe files, the examples that you love, and making some time to then define them and categorize them. And I think especially as marketers, because that's what we're talking about, people that have that kind of background, we tend to put too much pressure on ourselves and we're constantly either creating or reviewing or finding ideas. And I almost like to think about it as a very specific time. So it might not be applicable for everyone because everybody's brain is different, quite honestly. And but I love the idea. For me, for example, that structure helps. So with a lot of our students, it really helps to have that dedicated time just to kind of immerse themselves into that kind of learning. Because for them, it feels more natural maybe than watching 17 hours of LinkedIn videos, which is also fine. I think sometimes booking that time can be really powerful. So first you create a system that works for you, and then actually making that time, whether it's weekly or monthly, to review it, and even just delete stuff that you feel actually this is not relevant, or archive it, can be really, really powerful. So a little something for anybody who's struggling. That's what has helped a lot of our students.
I'm taking notes. That's really good. It's good. Yeah, like doing a bit of time blocking and actually like setting aside 30 minutes or whatever it might be per week or per day to go over those things is very smart, for sure.
Now, talking about smart things, let's go into class in session. It's time to talk about more smart things. And enough of me talking about systems, because that's what I could talk about all day. I want to hear from you again. I want to hear one thing that you can teach our students and listeners, obviously, but one thing that you can teach us in 1 minute or so, Dylan.
What's one thing I can teach you in 1 minute? I think my biggest focus in the last year has been on newsletter growth and monetization. So in 1 minute, let me give you a quick rundown of the ways I found the quickest or the best ways you can grow your newsletter, because that's what everybody struggles with the most. Because once you grow, then monetization can tend to be a little bit easier. So growing your newsletter, the main things that I found the most successful are cross promotions. So free exchange of you promote my newsletter, I'll promote yours. A lead magnet that is highly relevant to your newsletter, so that when people download it and then get on your email list to your newsletter, they're not going to be there's not going to be that dissonance. Like they downloaded this thing that's totally different than what you're talking about in your newsletter. The social media, leverage of social media to promote your newsletter, whether it's in your bio and with the content you share and post, and then also tacking on your newsletter at the end of a popular thread or tweet. And then one thing I'm doing right now, going on in front of other people's audiences, going on podcasts, guest blogs, maybe guest writing in another newsletter, that can also help really drive a lot of traffic. So those are a few ways that you can grow your newsletter starting today.
I love these. See, you did amazing. And, and you give us actually more than one thing. You give us a lot of things we can explore. So, yay. Well done. Congrats. Claps. Not sure if Chris is going to put claps in post. But if he does, Dylan is also bowing for us. So thank you very much. Now, I'm actually going to give you one tool because, again, there's another thing that I love tools. A bit like yourself, I do kind of collect things and save things. A really good tool, I want to know if you heard about it, Dylan, as well, is called Letter Growth. And it's free cross-promotion, and all is a website. And the guy, Paul, that set it up, it's super simple. And all you have to do is just put your newsletter in, put your info, and then every so often somebody comes through and says, hello, do you want to cross-promote? And because we kind of do already also as a paid thing for other kind of options, it's kind of easy for us because we already have a system. We just give people the free option of it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, that's been really nice just because it actually sends you a reminder as well every week. So that's a nice way to do it. There are other ways like Spark Loop and other tools like that. But Letter Growth is nice because I think if you're not super tacky and sophisticated yet with your emails, I think is a good starting point for it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I've been following along Paul's journey for the last 6 months, a year or so. And I don't know if you're part of the Discord group that he sort of, kind of beta launched Letter Growth in. But he's got a newsletter Discord group that's amazing. It's got a lot of great newsletter publishers in there. And so, yeah, I think I just pulled up Letter Growth now, and he's got over 230 newsletters listed, which totals 1.9 million potential subscribers. Now, there may be a fair bit of overlap or crossover with those subscribers, but that's just everybody's list combined. So it's a total tally of everyone's list there. So I think it's pretty awesome, and I've started using it, and can't wait to use it more. It's free, which is awesome, at least for now.
I think that's the thing as well. If anything, it can actually teach you how to kind of like go about like promotions, because that's the other thing. A lot of the time is either paid promotions, or maybe you feel like you're going to go into the void of somebody's inbox, and it can be quite daunting if you've never done it. I've done it a lot for a lot of things with all the brands that I've run. So I'm kind of used to it, but I appreciate it for some people. This is very new. So I like this because it also eases you into it, and it kind of takes out a bit of the awkwardness of being like, where are you coming from? Why are you talking to me right now? So exactly. I really, really like that. My second question for you when it comes to the class in session is looking at unlearning. Oh, yes. Instead of learning, you taught us something already. I want to know about you. I want to know about something you unlearned recently. And how did that improve your life and or your work?
I have started to, I guess I kind of had to unlearn swimming. And this is kind of a weird thing to consider because it has nothing to do with anything we're talking about. But I've decided, I turned 40 last month. And so my version of a midlife crisis is signing up for a triathlon. And so, it proved that I'm not old, of course. So I'm not a great swimmer, and part of triathlon is swimming. You have to swim for an Olympic triathlon is 1.5 kilometers. And, that terrified me. And so I had to kind of sort of relearn almost how to swim and unlearn all the bad habits I had and get in the pool and basically get used to being uncomfortable because I'm comfortable running. I can run fairly long distances. And biking, cycling is okay. But swimming was like, oh man, I have to swim. That's a lot of swimming. So it's been an interesting challenge recently. Now that may not be at all what you had expected, but that was something that jumps to mind right away.
Oh no, I love this. And I think a lot of the time we think about some of the most practical things, or maybe actionable things. And then we forget that again, in life, there's so many magical lessons that we can learn from, again, unlearning or kind of changing our perspective around some of the things that either scared us or made us uncomfortable, or they kind of blocked us from actually maybe, again, as you talked about, triathlons, actually achieving a goal. And it's a great reminder that sometimes a different perspective or almost kind of setting your mind to it because of a milestone can be a really powerful way to try things in a new way. So good luck with that, because triathlons ain't no jokes. No. And I love that you actually put in the stuff as a goal for you as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That's for sure.
Talking about teaching one more time and learning one more time, I have one more question, which is, what is one of the biggest lessons that a teacher or a mentor has taught you?
Right. Okay. So I was racking through my brain thinking about all the, managers and supervisors I've had over the years. And I think just their actions and the things that they have, the way they've treated me and treated others around me has taught me a lot just about how to kind of lead and guide and serve people. And then, being diplomatic and caring and also, discipline when they need to. That's been great. And then one really powerful lesson I learned from Justin Welsh, who your audience is probably familiar with to some degree, is, he was giving away tons and tons and tons of this free information in 2019, 2020, when he was first really building his audience. And it blew me away how much that he wasn't really charging for any of it. And he was just sharing all this great stuff on LinkedIn, really tactical information. And, he wrote about how he believes you should just, for a year, you just give as much as you can. You offer as much of your knowledge, of your advice, of your expertise as possible, so that you build the trust, you build the relationships, you build the credibility within your audience. And once it comes time that you actually have something to sell them or offer for a fee, because I don't like the word sell, but once you have a service to provide that they might want to buy, it's just going to be that much easier and that much quicker of a sale. And you don't have to actually convince people. You just tell them, hey, I've got this thing now. And if you want to pay for it, and if you've been enjoying my content, I think you'll find it really valuable and really helpful. So basically it was give, and then ask. And I thought that that was just, that was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. And I think it's brilliant, and more people should adopt that than go straight to asking for a sale before they've created any kind of credibility for themselves, because I see it happen every day.
One of the reasons why this resonates with me, and thank you for sharing it, is also because we tend to forget that, especially as we're establishing ourselves, we think that everybody knows us because we've been talking to the void or talking to the world, depending, for a year or 9 months or 6 months. But in actuality, most people probably have only come across us once or twice, especially during our first year. The touch points or the customer touch points, that's what we talk about a lot, and not that many, or the audience's touch points, because it's just naturally you're just kind of getting yourself out there. So I think it's that reminder, and I love that you brought it back. And I can see why that will be a lot of what Justin talks about. Again, we talked about him before, and I follow him too, so I understand I can see that in his content, and I think it's a great reminder for anyone, especially if you are, as you say, establishing yourself a bit more and maybe you know that you are new to some spaces, I think is a great reminder. So thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome.
Now, as you're sipping something, and if you're just watching, you can, there you go. If you're not watching on YouTube, either this or that. Is that what this or that section, which is Quickfire. And I'm going to have a couple of options and you need to only choose one. You can only pick one out of these. You ready? This or that is coming. Excellent. Okay. Spotify playlist or podcast?
Podcast.
Voice note or text?
Voice note.
Oh, nice. You know what? There's a lot of strong contenders where like the voice note is very much hated by a very big contingency of guests. So, wow, I like it. Okay.
Voice note for myself. If I'm in a hurry and I need to voice note something to somebody else, I'll do it. But I use voice notes for ideas all the time because otherwise I'll just forget to write it down and then the idea goes away and gets taken by someone else.
That's actually a great tip. I love that. Carousels or reels?
Oh, neither.
Okay, then favorite content then. What would it be?
Okay. Well, I just had to delete TikTok from my phone because it was way too all-consuming. So probably short video.
Short videos what gets us. I see. Then another very important question. One probably one of the most important in this or that. Memes or GIFs?
Memes.
It's hard. Somebody found a loophole. Can you figure out the loophole for this one?
Oh, a GIF with a meme in it?
Yes! A meme that uses a GIF. And I was like, yeah, you found the loophole, you win. And they were like, what?
Smart.
I was like, respect.
Yeah. You're now in the Matrix.
You are, exactly. That was blue pill, red pill, or yellow pill. Anyway, and then the final question, which I kind of maybe know the answer, but it might be a hard one. Newsletter or Twitter?
Oh, well, newsletter is the be-all end-all, but you really need to use something like Twitter or a social media platform to get people there. At least it helps a lot. So I would still say newsletter if you had to start doing something today, but it's going to be hard to grow it without Twitter or a social platform of sorts.
That's actually fair. That's a good reminder as well. So I have a couple more questions just to finish us off. Well done though doing the quickfire though, because I know the quickfire can be very, very nerve-wracking.
It's intense.
It's intense. I know it's an intense 2 minutes. But you did great. You even found a loophole. Now, yes. What is one? We talked about a few already, so that will be interesting to see if there's anything else that comes up. What is one of your favorite, maybe a bit underrated or maybe not well-known tools when it comes to newsletters and email marketing that maybe not everybody knows of?
Okay, so most people know of ConvertKit, and most people, so I won't talk about that. And you mentioned SparkLoop earlier, so I assume most people are familiar with that. I like to use when I'm testing my subject lines, there's a service called, I believe it's called ShareThrough, is the website, and they have a headline analyzer.
Nice.
And so it's good for headlines, but it works for subject lines as well. And so essentially you just enter your headline or subject line, and it tells you is this going to, it gives you a rating essentially, and out of 100. And then it also tells you how you can improve it, what you should do to improve it. And then you can kind of it's kind of like a game, and you try to get it as close to 100 as you can without sounding too clickbaity and too much like a BuzzFeed article.
Fun fact on this, because this is a great suggestion. So we use this a lot when I do live sessions about email marketing, which we do a lot with different students. I always bring up a subject analyzer because I know that if people are new to it, it can actually be a great way for them to kind of get more confident. And I kid you not, I have to tell the students now, we have a bit more to go. I don't want you to keep testing headlines for the rest of the session. I will see you if you do that because it's obsessed. I share a few because there used to be, the co-schedule one was really good and now there's a paywall-ish to it. So I don't suggest it anymore, but there's quite a few. So I never heard of the ShareThrough one. And I find that that's the problem, or the positive or negative, I'm not sure, is that people get obsessed with it, trying to beat the numbers. But they're really handy tools, I think, especially if you're not used to write headlines, it can really help you with kind of guiding you through that. So thank you for that. Now, I want to know, what is the last picture you took on your phone?
Oh, good question. Let's see really, really quick so I don't waste all of your time. I think it was probably a picture of my cat on my son's lap. Yep. Yep, there it is. I don't know if you can see that at all.
We even get a bit of a video if you are again on YouTube, or if you're not on YouTube, just go on YouTube and see it. Figure it out. Love it.
Yeah.
Now, on the similar vein, actually, I'm interested in this one. What is your favorite social media platform right now and why? Is it still Twitter?
Yep. Yeah. Just because how it works, it's a written platform for the most part, and newsletters are mostly consumed by reading and they're written. So it just works really well for that crossover. If people are reading on Twitter, it's just less of a disconnect than seeing a picture on Instagram and seeing a video on TikTok or YouTube, or Instagram. And so I think it works almost the best. Now, LinkedIn, can be, you can almost swap them out depending on where your audiences are. If you're more professional B2B, maybe LinkedIn works better, but more B2C or creator content, solopreneur content, Twitter works great there as well. So personally, I still quite like Twitter, and I don't use LinkedIn as much as I could or should, but there's also, I do have also a full-time job that I want to keep that a little bit on the professional side. So not to kind of confuse people, I guess.
No, that's fair. Mm-hmm. That's fair, actually. And I still see that, again, Twitter has a lot of potential, and actually there's a lot of nice conversations happening in there still, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. Is there one person that we should follow that you can recommend us, just in case we don't know them?
Ooh, so if we're talking about newsletter people, there are a few people that I follow that I think are really handy, or who are basically doing what I wish I was doing, what I wish I could be doing. And there's people, all over the spectrum as well. I have actually my, how you can set notifications for when certain people tweet. Mm-hmm. There's a few, let me just get them pulled up here, because there's probably, of course, they're not showing them to me right now. Those Twitter, Elon, blame Elon. Okay, I can't. Yeah, exactly. I can't find it right now. But some of my favorite people who are tweeting about newsletters are most recently. There's a gentleman by the name of Matthew McGarry, and the reason I listened to him. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to put it for our listeners as well.
Yeah. So for your listeners, he worked for, I think he mostly got a start at The Hustle. He was basically their paid growth guy. So he did all their, or managed and ran the paid department. So he did all their Facebook ads, some of their video ads. And so he's like really tuned into how to grow a newsletter with paid ads. He's also worked with The Milk Road, which a lot of your audiences probably heard of. He's worked with The Gist. He's worked with some other really big newsletters. So he's somebody that I follow just because he has insights, not just with paid newsletter growth, but with a number of things. There's a few other people that come to mind, but he would be one of the main ones that I would recommend following in terms of newsletter growth. And then there's, I'm just scrolling because my mind draws a blank when I ask these questions. So I just need to quickly take a peruse, but, no, I can't find him. Can't remember his name. Anyway, one other girl who's recently got on a lot of people's radar is Chanel Basilio, and she writes a newsletter called Growth in Reverse. And she basically breaks down, you've heard of her. She breaks down how newsletters of about 50,000 subscribers or larger got there. And so she doesn't interview the actual newsletter publisher. She just goes into basically the catalog of their blog posts, their tweets, their interviews on podcasts, and just basically does this huge research and then does a whole case study on it and figures out how they grew. And so her content it's longer form content, but it's a real good deep dive, and you can get some really good takeaways from it. So she's doing an awesome job in that space too.
Love it. That's amazing recommendations. See, we got 2 amazing ones. So well done. Like even with a little scrolling of doom. Now I have one final question before I let you say what people can find out more about y'all. Would be, I'm going to adapt it because we're talking about newsletters today. So let's adapt it. So if you could send one email onto everybody's phone, or in everybody's inbox in this case. So if you could send one email to everybody's inbox, what would that email say?
How do I say this without sounding too much like a fortune cookie? I think it would be, a lot of people say just start and be consistent. That's like kind of one of the common phrases we hear online a lot. And so I would say yes, and do that, and think about being resilient as well, because the journey is long for many of us. You don't go, from point A to point Z right away. There's a lot of ups and downs and challenges and what perceived failures that were actually just lessons, and you rise up from the ashes from them. And so I think the important thing is to cultivate more of a resilient mindset. So my email would be how to be resilient to, that's a terrible title because it's very general, but that it would essentially be that messaging. Think about yourself in 2 years from now and where you'll be, as opposed to thinking about where you'll be in 3 months, because you're not going to make significant progress in 3 months necessarily as you will if you had stuck with something for 2 long years.
I love that. That's great. Again, and even if, it can be whatever you want it to be, because anyway, it's going to be a magical email that will go to everyone. So I love that. I think it's a great reminder that everybody could benefit from. So thank you. Thank you for the chat. Thank you for being my friend for this hour. Thank you for being our friend. And if our lovely listeners and students want to find out more about you and about your work and just say hi, where should they go? Where can we direct them to finish off?
Yes, they can find me at Growth Currency on most channels, but really I will ignore you on all of them except Twitter because I don't don't really access them too often. But yeah, at Growth Currency, and then growthcurrency.net is where you can check out the articles I've written and subscribe to the newsletter. And it's a newsletter on teaching you how to start, grow, improve, and monetize your own newsletter.
Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. We really hope that you got up your ropes with a newsletter and you're ready to up your game, because I surely got a couple of things that I'm going to be working on. As always, we will be back next week. But in the meantime, let us know what you think. Don't forget to rate and subscribe, please, and thank you. And in the meantime, class is dismissed.